Hello, my name is Charles Hessifer, and today I'll be talking about configuring ThreatSecure Network Virtual Appliance Part 1. Getting started. First, you'll need access to the ESX server hosting the TSN Virtual Appliance. You'll need permissions to edit the virtual machine settings for the virtual appliance. You'll need SSH access to the ESX server to enable nested hypervisor support. You'll need knowledge of which ESX network connection to assign to network adapter 3 on the virtual appliance for monitoring. This should map back to a spam port or a tap. You'll need to assign a host name to the ThreatSecure Network virtual appliance. You'll need to have the IP address, net mask, and gateway you will assign to each interface. And lastly, you'll need to know which time zone to apply to the TSN virtual appliance. For more information, please see the ThreatSecure Network install and user guides. Now that we've deployed the ThreatSecure Network virtual appliance, let's go ahead and SSH into the ESX server to ensure that the virtual appliance has nested hypervisor support enabled. All right, so now what we'll want to do is we'll want to navigate to our data store that contains the actual virtual appliance. And in my case, it's under Volumes, File 0, which is the data store. Inside of there, you should see the directory for the ThreatSecure Network virtual appliance. And inside of that directory, you should see the .vmx file. What we're going to want to do is we're going to want to go ahead and echo vhv.enable equal to true. Actually, we should probably put that in single quotes. And then we're going to go ahead and append that to the tsn .vmx file. All right? Once we've done that, we can go ahead and take a look at the last line of the file and make sure that we have configured it correctly. And you'll see here that we have vhv.enable set to true. All right? So we can go ahead and log out of here. Now we can go into our ESX server. We'll expand the listing here, and under the listing you should see the TSN virtual appliance that we deployed. We can go ahead and click on Edit Virtual Machine Settings. Most of these parameters you can leave to their default settings. Really what we're going to focus on is Network Adapter 1. So you'll see Network Adapter 1 is set to our admin network, and then Network Adapter 3 is going to be assigned to our monitor interface. And if you recall, this is the interface that maps back to our spam port or our tap. This will allow us to see both transmit and receive traffic inside of the ThreatSecure Network virtual appliance. Other than that, we can go ahead and click on OK and go ahead and power on the virtual machine. And then we could swap over to Summary and click on Open Console. We'll give a moment for this to boot up. All right, once the boot sequence is complete, We can go ahead and log into the virtual appliance. You'll use the username and password that you find in the install and user guide. And once I'm logged in, you'll notice that we're presented with the ThreatSecure admin shell. From here, I can type the word help and hit enter to get a listing of valid commands. I'm going to want to go ahead and configure the system since this is the first time we've deployed it. So to do that, I'm just going to type config sys, and there is tab completion. So if you want to hit tab, it will auto complete the command syntax for you. Once I hit config system, it presents me with the existing system configuration, and I can choose to go ahead and accept that or change it. We're going to go ahead and say we're not satisfied with the current configuration. And we're going to enter in a host name for the appliance. I'm going to go ahead and accept this host name. And it's going to ask us to configure the time zone. I am in the America, New York time zone, so I'm going to go ahead and say no here. And then it asks if we want to configure the admin interface. I'm going to say yes. And here we have a choice of selecting DHCP or static IP assignment to the interface. I'm going to go ahead and use a static IP address. And I'll accept the default that's here, 10.55.108. And next we need to assign a net mask. I'll go ahead and accept my net mask that's currently configured. And then we get to the configure web interface. The web interface does not need to be configured if you plan on doing all of your management via SSH as well as your console or the UI access through the admin interface. So the admin interface allows those connections directly to it. Only in the event that you would want to separate or you needed to separate SSH traffic from your UI traffic would you then need to apply an IP address to the web interface. And I'm going to go ahead and say no to the configuration of the web interface. And I'll want to go ahead and set a gateway. And I'll go ahead and use the 10.5.5.254 that I had previously assigned. And now you'll notice that it gives us the new system configuration, so we can check it to make sure that there's no mistakes. And if we're satisfied with the current configuration, we can go ahead and hit yes. And one thing I will bring up is you'll notice that web, we chose not to configure web. So in this particular case, it's going to be set to DHCP. And if there's no DHCP server available to service that request, then you may get a timeout when applying the configuration. One thing you could do instead of having those DHCP requests sent out is you could assign some valid RFC19 address space and just not use that particular interface. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and apply the changes. All right, so you'll see here that we timed out on the web interface as it was trying to get a DHCP address and there was no DHCP server available. But we can go ahead and take a look. For example, we can say config show system, and what this is going to do for us is it's going to go ahead and show us what our current configuration is for the system. And as you can see here, the existing system configuration is exactly what we set, so we can be confident that our settings have been applied, and we can go ahead and exit the ThreatSecure admin shell. This concludes our session on configuring ThreatSecure Network Virtual Appliance Part 1.